Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who know how to set up a campfire and are not hesitant to point out that you are doing it wrong. Tonight, I'm joined by Ryan Null. Ryan is a dad, a husband. He does men's ministry, and he's an author of the Flare Chronicles, Into the Blaze, a fantasy series he actually started in high school, which he was inspired to do by one of his teachers. Ryan has an ever growing newsletter and social media platforms. His readers are in the UK, India, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Bulgaria, and the United States. Good old US of A. Special edition of the Flare Chronicles come out sometime between July and August 2025. Book 2 will launch this year, with book 3 completing the series in the near future. Ryan, welcome to the Dadlet Pod.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Did I get everything right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot, man. It's coming up on a year now, and it's just crazy, how much I've grown and time has went by, and it's humbling, I would say. It's very
It's,
humbling.
you're a real force. You're doing internet, you're doing book festivals and book fairs, and doing cons. What's driving this? Is it being a dad and wanting to show your kids that dreams can happen?
I mean that's a big chunk of it. I love writing. I love readers. I love hearing stories, and I've changed so many lives just from reading the book or kids get excited about seeing an author and them signing it. It blows their mind. You know what I mean? Like that face, you just can't beat it. And then my boys, they're always like, "Oh, that's Daddy's dragon book," or "Hey, Dad, they've got a dragon book too." They're all excited about it. So, um, I just wanted to really have my name everywhere and everyone be known. And I want to write full time, and I've got a story to tell, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Look, this is first of all, we're going to get into all that because I love every bit of it, particularly getting kids and particularly boys excited about reading, which I think we all know is a bit of a struggle. It's a bit of a struggle to get my daughter excited about reading. I can only imagine my nephews. But anyway, tell me about the Flare Chronicles. Give me, give me, give me what's happening. I imagine, given that there's a dragon, it's probably fantasy.
It is. It's
Yes.
really fantasy for anyone. So I've got second graders to adults reading it. Book one, which is Into the Blaze, the biggest complaint that I've had is it's smaller. But the purpose of that book is basically it throws you into the world of Azerin and the world I created, and it sets up really the future for everything. Book two is a little bit darker, so it's bigger, but it's darker, but it kind of captates, it kind of grows that universe and there's more continents and countries and things like that discovered. And then book three will complete the series. I plan on writing 300 books as my map is big enough I can, but
Hmm.
it has original beast characters. I made my own race of dragons. I made my own magic language. I made my own like kind of like English is to us, but I made my own common language, which you'll see in book two, and some in book three as well. And then I made my own cities. The map I hand drew. Well, I've got software, but it's my design and drawing and names and places and things like that. So it's handcrafted by me, and it really expands the world. I mean, there's a lot to write and things like that. So. It's just been a humbling experience. I always tell everyone if you like Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like them clash together. Or if you read
Nice.
like Dragonlance, so that's another good series it can compare to, you know what I mean, if you're looking at what like genre to read. Um,
So
but yeah, man.
you say it's for everyone. Who's your protagonist? Who do we follow in this first journey?
So there's three. So Daniel is kind of the main one, but he was based off my younger brother. His name's Daniel, and I got to watch him growing up through high school and that. And then there's Trisha, which was named after a girl that ironically I haven't seen since high school. So I hope one day I can find her and be like, hey, you're in this you're in this book, and so, and then the third one is a legendary swordsman, and his name's Brock Tree, and he was just because everyone loves swordsmen. You got to have like some oddball, you know what I mean?
And so I imagine this group comes together to battle something, almost definitely a dragon, given the color.
There is, but
Yep.
it's different in most books there is kind of like there is an overall arc, but most books there is like one book in the whole thing. Well, Into the Blaze has four like mini stories basically into one book, but they
Hmm.
kind of build upon each other, so they're traveling to different countries and seeing different things, and each story is a means to ends to the next one. So it does follow along. Um, and then towards the end of it, they will meet the dragon race that I created, and then black dragons. And then book two, I added more dragons and more races and things like that. It's book two's kind of centered. But book two has like act one, act two, act three. And
Yeah.
my spicy romancy series that I got the first book written already that I hope to publish soon as well. I did the same thing. I did like act one, act two, act three.
Oh, okay.
So
So you got your team together as a book two, and they're all going adventuring through a typical three act structure. Is that what I'm hearing?
similar, yes. I
Yeah.
do introduce like book two. I do introduce like gods. I made my own festivals. I made my own like food and more like snacks. And I do add a couple more like supporting characters that you'll see at the end of three. And
Yeah.
then book three, I add a few more supporting characters. And then, of course, the tragedies, some of them die and things like that. But
Well, yeah, you
kind
got
of
to
the
clean
main,
house.
yeah. Once it gets so big, it's hard to keep track of everything, you know what I mean?
So that's a question I always have about epic fantasy. And I think we could describe yours as epic fantasy. You've created a world. You're now playing stories out in that world, and they're all united by sort of a common mythos or a common environment. How do you keep track of where everybody is?
So I have a bad habit of writing the first book in the series and then making my map like afterwards and the continents and things like that. So I don't know why I do that, but I do it every time.
So it's like a Settlers
And
of
then
Catan map. You just like,
yeah.
oh, that continent. You could always go for like a donut shaped planet. That way
Right.
you could connect everything together.
That would be cool. Yeah. I kind of kicked myself in the butt doing it that way because after the first book's written, I end up spending like an extra 2 hours making the map because I'm having to reread it like five times, to get my north and south and east and west and all the directions. But I do have a Word document that I'll write like outlines or possible names of characters or towns or anything like that. And I do that before I write the first book. And then I have a master Excel sheet that's just massive. And it's got like quotes, it's got each book, it's got chapters, and then it also has like every continent or every island. And I've got, I name all the forest and mountain and trees and lakes and the whole shebang. So when I'm making this map, I generally lay out that master Excel sheet, like I add to it from what I have, and then it just becomes like a big compiled documents basically that I keep referencing. So
Oh,
it's the
nice.
easiest,
It- it-
but it's a lot of
I
work.
I I have the hardest time in the world coming up with names and keeping the spelling correctly. particularly with women's names. Women's names kill me. And so I often just name characters after my wife and daughter. And so in each of my books, there's always a Liz or an Abigail. And
Right.
and so recently I got started with this horror novel that's based in a high school. And I was just like, man, there's no way I'm going to remember all these names. So I just went out on
Yeah.
Facebook and I was like, man, anyone who wants to be in this horror novel and have their name in the horror novel, I will not associate any stories with you directly from high school, but I'll throw your name in there. I'm happy to have you in there, just so that I could just get a pool of names to work from.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had issue with names, so generally I will search Google and see like what the translation is of one name or
Hmm.
one like character or like a typical animal name or something like that. And then I'll go through like 200 languages just trying to find the right one.
Hmm.
And then I may keep it, but I may tweak it a little bit too to sound more like fantasy or, something like original basically or something different. It's time consuming though. It takes a ton of time when you're doing it that way. But once you have like the elements there and the map there and you have the outlines there, I can pretty well like my new book, that series, it's 80 something thousand words. I wrote it in 4 months. So
Nice. Nice.
it
Churning
it
out
makes things a lot
pages.
easier. But
So you're tackling fantasy, and fantasy is interesting to me because I do like some fantasy, and I find that just instinctually, I've talked about this before on the pod. I'm kind of in love with the way that George R. Martin structures his chapters. Um, so I'm always interested, but wouldn't necessarily write fantasy myself. I just don't think I'd be very good at it because I'd have like a talking toaster at some point. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, like, like at some point I'd be like, oh man, I've already had goblins. Okay, what about like a toaster that talks? And so at the same time, fantasy has a lot of like good, positive themes that you talk about your book being available or enjoyable by a wide range of people. What sort of themes do you try and capture with your fantasy novels and with your fantasy world? Obviously Tolkien had environmentalism and pastoralism and all those sort of things. And what do you get? What are you getting at? What are you trying to sell with your fantasy stories in terms of like ideas?
hmm So my main goal has always been hope and inspiration. And
Mm.
you see that like, my main character Daniel, I mean, by the third book and by the end of it, he's chewed up like a, old jigsaw. I mean, he's gone through the ringer hell and back. He's pretty beat up. He's burnt. He's, been beaten. He's got scars, but but he never gives up. He sees that light at the end of the tunnel. He's always positive, and he transforms into, a really good leader. Had to make some hard decisions, but he's wise after it. So I always try to stand on that hope and inspiration because I know, like, personally, I've gone through a lot and I know the world's sometimes a hard place and we all have stress and we all have a lot going on. Our kids got, stuff going on. And so at the end of the day, as you're reading it and you see all the things that, is thrown at him where he's gone through the ringer, he's been burned or cut up or whatever, he still has that hope and inspiration that there's good things to come. And I try to rally behind it. Like I got my shirt on, which you probably, I don't know. Hold on, I'll see if you can. Yeah, it's too low, but my shirt says hope and inspiration. Hold on. Woo, there you go. It's got
Oh,
my
nice.
logo on it. series with Dragon. And I really try to push that just because it's hard to find fantasy books that are unique in these days. And there's a lot of good fantasy writers, it's nothing knock on them. But I see a lot of the same formula. And when I grew up, I read a lot of Dragonlance books, which some people know, some people don't, but they've got over 300 books. And it's kind of the same thing. There's hope and inspiration. And even like Wrestling, one of my favorite characters, he's kind of well, he turns into a dark archmage, basically, that follows the black, magic, the evil daughter, basically. He's still like, if you look at him, he's still good in the inside. He has good intentions. He's different. You know what I mean? He's unique. And so that was kind of a theme that I could relate to going through school and going through life. And so I've tried to instill that in my books, but I've also tried to make it like that series particular where, no matter what age, as long as your reading proficiency is second grade or higher, like it should be something enjoyable because you can be like, hey, I can recognize with that guy, like I can relate and I've been in his shoes before. And that's really what I've tried to steer the theme towards.
Yeah, and you said in when the bio you sent me, you said that you were inspired to do this by a teacher in school. What exactly was that inspiration? Just in case there are any teachers out there looking to inspire future dad litters. It's probably not a great name for the dad lit pod community. The DLP, the
There you go.
DLPers, the Dulpers. Anyway,
Well,
what did they do?
that would
What did
be.
they do to sell you on writing? Because my English teachers were also an inspiration for me, but mostly to be a political junkie and a history junkie.
So my dad's been a tool and die maker for years. I mean, God help him, I love him, but he's more of a hands-on kind of guy, and that's, building things, machinery, that's kind of his. I love to read. I used to read over 300 books a year in middle school, like every year, to the point to where I was like not doing homework and stuff. I would get in trouble because I would go home and read all night, and be stuck in a book. But I had an eighth grade teacher. Her name was Miss Newton. She ended up having breast cancer. She passed away. But I wrote one prequel of this series. Just it was really a short form of it. I still have it, and I ended up getting one of the highest grades between me and another guy. Well, she pulled me aside as I was leaving the classroom, and she said, "Hey, you've got talent for writing. You should write." And I'm like, eighth grade, like you're not thinking about writing. You're thinking about everything else, and I'm like, well, that's like not the coolest thing in the world to do is writing at eighth grade. But I was like, I'll give it a go, and so I started writing a second prequel, and then I showed her, and she absolutely loved it. So she really instilled that, and then all through high school, I started writing more. I started writing this series, and then I just really enjoyed it. Well, she ended up like continuously would be checking on me and was like, "Hey, how's the story going? How's it, you need anything or you having trouble?" And she was just always really there and pushing me and giving me that, hope and inspiration and kindness and, really believed in what I could do. And it was just very humbling. It was very nice. And so the first book, Into the Blaze, I really tried to dedicate to her because teachers are such a huge thing. They don't get paid a lot. They do a lot of work. They do a lot of extra late hours, or they spend all their own money on things. And I mean, if it wasn't for that one teacher, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
I try to give tribute to what she's did and just that little push when I may not had it at home or other people was like, well, that's not cool. I mean, no, it's not cool to write. And even in high school, everyone's like, okay, just laughed it off. I'm like, no, guys, for real, I'm gonna write one day and I'm gonna publish. And but she was like the only one that was like, "Hey Ryan, how's it going? Like, have you written today? Like, how's your writing for the week?" You know what I mean? And
Yep.
Like it's good to have that as writers, and especially like the youth, because there's so much other stuff in the world that kind of bombards them that, it can be overwhelming, or it can distract them from writing or reading or inspiration, things like that. So it really, I still, and a lot of people around here know her because she was local. So a lot of people, when I mentioned the name and that, they're like, "Oh, she was such a great person." I was like, "I know, she, had the kindest heart. She was just a sweetheart."
So, what to dads out there that want to instill the sort of value that you got that this is not to obviously I'd love to be able to make tools and die. I kind of skipped the being able to do shit part of my
Right.
education. I read plenty. I read plenty, but I'm YouTubing my way through fatherhood at this point,
Right.
but on all
Right.
the other stuff. But at the same time, what do you think? Is it the nature of the stuff that you were reading? Is it getting that encouragement? Is it the fact that your mom and dad were always willing to bring you to the library or always willing to put a book in front of you? Was it the topics? What gets a young man to read so voraciously that they decide that they are going to in high school write an epic fantasy series and they're going to commit themselves to that? What goes into building that?
I mean, so personally, for me, it was really like my mom. She took us to the library in Illinois, and that was a huge thing because out of seven kids, there was about four of us that loved to go to the library. So, every time, every other weekend, or every time we seen her, she was consistently like, "Hey, you want to go to the library? Check out the reading program." Or, and Dad did it a lot too. Every time there was scholastics, he'd be like, "Here's money for books. Go buy you a book." Like he always said, "Hey, buy books." And then at a lot of times on my birthday, he would take me to Barnes and Noble and be like, "Hey, pick out books because that's what I wanted for my birthday. I just wanted books."
Hmm.
And so he had a writing friend too, which she kind of told me a little bit about publishing and writing and things like that, which helped because I did learn quite a bit when I was younger. And she helped, like, hey, told me that you keep writing and ideas and like that. So for me, it was just that support system, and to the fact that tell them like, hey, it's cool to read and write. I know most like boys in general or dads are like, oh, we're gonna build something, or we're gonna mow, we're gonna be a mechanic, or we're gonna get tools, and like that's all great. There's nothing wrong with that because you still gotta fix your house and yard and chickens or whatever you got going on, But the reading part is also important because it's harder when they get older to have that habit of writing and reading and sticking to it. And I mean, they say the best thing you can do is read a book every week, continuously
Hmm.
reading, even the older you get. It's been proven scientific fact. So the earlier you can get them in there, the better. Um,
Hmm.
and, I know some dads will like read to their kids, or they'll be like, hey, is this book appropriate? And they'll buy the book and be like, here, I want you to read it. Or they'll make them read it. You know what I mean? Which I mean, I that helps. I've always loved fantasy, so fantasy was kind of always my realm. I love dragons. I loved anything, any movies and that. And me and my dad went to a lot of movies, and we saw Lord of the Rings, the third one, in the theaters. And I mean, he slept through most of it because it's like a 3-hour movie, But I mean, he still took me there and introduced me to that, and he knew that was kind of the realm I lived in and I loved. And so that was kind of our thing, let's go to the movies and see a fantasy movie or see something like that. So
Hmm.
really, to all the dads out there, I would suggest take them to a library, number one, summer reading program, because they can get free like pizza or free ice cream or something that really for kids, that's enticing. Like, hey, I want ice cream pizza. But also find a genre they love. And fantasy is nice because it's really for all ages. You know what I mean? It's not like murder or thrillers or mystery that you kind of got to watch what age group they are because it depends on the book itself. Where
Hmm.
fantasy, you can be anybody you want to, you can read anything you want to, you can. It's all imagination. So sparking that, helps. And then my younger boys will build blocks or we'll draw a lot or we'll do something just to keep their imagination going. And that also helps and correlates with reading in books because then they're more apt to be like, hey, that's a cool cover. Or, hey, I want to read this and dive into that. You know what I mean? So that creativity is really important. And as they get older, it's amazing how much it can reflect in their life or different things that they can do or become. So
Hmm.
I mean that's really from my experience and my personal best advice I would give.
I've found that if you put a dragon on the cover, my wife will buy it, and pretty much anyone will be enamored with it. My wife is currently in the midst of what's the one where they ride the dragons?
Is it if it's the adult
Uh,
one, it's Fourth Wing.
yeah, it's Fourth Wing. Yes, she's in the middle of
Mhm.
Fourth Wing. So my house has been all dragons for the past month and a half.
Yeah.
Of what other series comes with a dragon and ladies who like dragons?
Right. They
So,
they love dragons though, man. If you
yeah.
find a woman that loves dragons and loves like fantasy, they're like hardcore fans. They will love it more and talk about it
Mhm.
more than men will. Like
Yeah,
it
no,
in
this
all my
is
books doing in that.
yeah, this is the thing that I've found is that my wife read a lot of fantasy as well. And it just kind of teetered off in high school because, she was too busy doing field hockey and I guess chasing dudes. I don't know what she
Right.
was doing back then,
Life just
causing
kind of
problem.
dumped in on
Yeah,
her.
in fact, I don't even want her to tell me. But now she's like, oh, her friend got her into Sarah J. Maas, and now she's like, I want to be alone so that I can read this book about dragons. So why don't you and our daughter go and find something to do? And then I'm like, that is very strange. Did not expect that from my from my wife in her I won't even mention what decade she's in. But I just say I didn't
Right.
expect that at this point in life that she would send me off so she could read about her dragons. But
I mean,
I there's
they're
an
all like
allure.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's an allure. I think uh there's a dynamism about dragons. I'll say that they're an interesting mythological being. So you say you've created some what would you call them? Fantasy bestial I would call them beasts from Dungeons and Dragons classic sort of thing.
Basically.
What have you created and what goes into creating one of those characters or
So I've
creating
created,
that sort of thing?
so I've created my own like planes. It's more like a lizard, but mixed in with, let's say, a dog or something like that. And I created my own kind of dog beast, but it's mixed in with something else. Generally, I try to um, fit the creation for the time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if it's a if it's a plains or if it's a forest or if it's an arena or a desert, like I created. Um, I can't reveal it, but there's something beast in book two. And my publisher, when me and him had our meeting, and me and my wife, he was asking me like, "How did you do this?" I said, "Well, I just thought of the scenario like I was writing." And I thought, well, hey, it'd be cool to do this. And instead of your typical like beast, where you find why don't I just throw a twist on it that no one's done? And so generally that's kind of how I do. I mean, when you make like a water dragon, or you make, a dog creature or a bird creature or a plains or a lizard, there's some rules you kind of still have to follow, you know what I mean? There's certain things like they're gonna have to eat, they're gonna have to walk on, like they've got to fit the climate, fit the environment, but it's the coolness about fantasy is that you can tweak them to however you want, and no one's gonna say a word. They're gonna be like, "Oh, this is cool," and it's just gonna stick with them. And then you can draw them, and you can design them and things like that, and then people it comes to life. So
Hmm.
I've always loved that aspect of fantasy that there's no set rules. You can control how you want. And when I was um, writing, that's kind of how I imagine. Now, book two doesn't have as many beasts. Book three has more beasts, but I would say between the whole series, book one has the most beasts just because it covers a lot more ground than the rest of them. Where like book two, it has a couple, but they're more in kind of like two continents. You know what I mean? They're not like roaming
Hmm.
everywhere and traveling. And book three, they're traveling a little bit more, but it's a lot more like elements and darker characters. And you got gods into play at that aspects, and their mythological creatures and their beings and things like that too. So the focus not really shifts, but it's just the scenery changes. So
Hmm.
as a result, you get less beasts, but I mean the world's immersive. I mean it's huge that I created. So, and I haven't touched probably 15 continents or 12 to 15 continents I haven't even touched or wrote a story on that I can add to that and write more beasts and things like that. So yeah, it goes a lot of thought and effort in creating Beast. Most people don't think it does, but it really does.
So, you're planning on basically keeping going within your imagined land. What's the name of it, by the way?
Azrin.
Azrin. And that's the continent or the world.
That's the world, and then there's three ages, and the current series covers two ages, and then I still have to make the map for the first age, but the
Hmm.
first age map will be like a catalyst. So imagine our world was, the Earth was together, and then we had the dinosaurs or meteorites or whatever you want to call it, and then all the
Yeah.
land shifted. So I've got to do that original map. I just haven't had time. I've been diving in the new series and everything else going on. So
So where does in every fantasy magic sort of comes from someplace. In your world, where does magic originate? Does it originate in sort of potions? Is it elemental? Is it a mix of things? Like what's sort of the origin of the thing that propels it? Or is it just very sort of naturalistic and kind of like Earth, but we kind of went a different direction?
it has a touch of the naturalistic, but it's more like elements and gods.
Hmm.
Now in the current series, the first book, the gods are vanished. So imagine like a world where there was gods, they were praying to them, they were, getting their magic, and that magic tradition and learning was passed down to generations. Well, they just vanished, basically. They just disappeared. So it's still there because, the knowledge has been there, people's been trained, and there's still kind of magic in the elements around them in the world, but the magic is known not as much. So the knowledge, as people die or pass away or move, the kind of big bulk of people that know kind of dwindle. And then, like I said, it kind of gets you thrown into the war that's coming up and coming. Dives right in there. So there is some magic, and I do expand on it more in book two and book three, just because the gods are starting to come back. So,
Hmm.
it's the power starting to come back because that's the source, more the source of it. There is magic in just kind of like floating around you. So kind of
Hmm.
what you feel, and it's kind of like Star Wars, that the Force was always there. You had to learn how to use it to your use, whatever you wanted to tweak it, and pull from it, and then you could use it for however you wanted. It's the same thing. It's there. And the knowledge is there, but just not as many people. And then when the gods start coming back through the series in book 2 and 3, the magic is stronger, or it's kind of got that extra oomph to it. And I did try to use some of like natural elements like fire, earth, and things like that, but I never sacrifice the story or the chapter just because I want to be average or what everyone else is doing. So if it doesn't fit the flow of the book, um, I won't add it.
Yeah.
It has to flow through the book. So to me, like that's how I write. And if it has 50 magic words, then that's great. But if it has three, then that's the flow of the story. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, the effect. We're getting to the effect. Yeah.
yes.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So, and
So
people,
no one's
readers
no one's
appreciate that. So,
yeah. Yeah, no one's sitting down to collect the nine different rooster toes
right.
that are
No.
required for the cauldron, which has to do an
Right.
overnight boil, and then everyone needs to chant while circling it backwards. Yeah, we're not gonna get
Right.
that. We'll save that for the ultimate battle.
Right.
Yeah. Let's save that for later.
Well, I mean, it's not like Dragonlance where they go collecting out bat poo and everything else and some grass and weeds to, make that caution spell. Now, I mean, I understand why they did that because it was based off D&D, and if you know the lore and the history of D&D, it's very prominent in that aspects of magic,
Yes,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? But like
Well,
I said, I
that's sort of
want to be
part of
different.
the yeah, yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I've thought about this and I've thought about I just released an audio essay where I think it would be a great idea if dad lit authors wrote Warhammer 40K books.
That would be
Uh
cool.
yes,
Yeah.
because Warhammer 40K is similar to what you're describing but it has a game with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like it has like the guys I know who like play Warhammer 40K. I'll read all the Warhammer 40K books. They're obsessed with the Warhammer 40K books. And they read from the Imperial Commissar's
Mhm.
chanting book and they do all that stuff and they're so into it. And I'm just like, man, if we could get like two of those guys to read Hemingway,
Right. The
you
world would
know what
be
I mean?
completely
We would
changed,
we would
right?
have we would have we would have a very vibrant male literary community. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It
that.
because to that extent, I think about it when I write something, right? Because I'm very conscious of it, very conscious of it, of trying to keep the element of action going and sort of the element of mystery. And I almost think that if we could figure out as authors how to sort of capture that gamified energy, that if we could figure out how to make it pop like the
Mhm.
opening of Skyrim, which
Oh,
by the
that would
way
be
is
cool.
just a
Yeah.
traditional fantasy trope that everyone's done throughout all time. We
Yeah.
we could be selling a zillion books out there. You know what I mean?
That
People
would
be
be
reading a
cool.
million books. So
I mean,
it's
yeah. I read my publisher told me to listen to Brandon Sanderson, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I listened. So I tried to write that night, but I ended up listening to his podcast on Spotify, one episode my publisher listened, and it was something that I just loved from it. Basically, you got to create, we're all using the same formula in fantasy, at least the fantasy realm,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you have to make it your own. Like you have to mix the ingredients. We're all given the same, but you got to make it so unique and different that it's like, man, this is something that no one has ever read before or thought of,
Yeah.
or so, as I'm writing, I'm conscientious of that, of like, well, I want to make something different. And generally, if I have an idea, I'll write it, and if it doesn't flow or work, then I'll try to tweak it to make it that. And then I'll just keep on going. But I mean, like the end of book three, how I had the outline, it was completely different how I wrote it. Like it didn't at all. Like other people died and some lived, and I mean, it was just way different. But I mean, it
Oh
it
no.
it
Oh
flowed
no.
and it was
What
unique.
happened?
So I
I
don't
just
know. Like
I'm just
I
envisioning you.
looked at it.
You're a very nice person. I'm just envisioning you looking around with all your characters' corpses going, "Oh no. What did I do? How did it get this far?"
Right. Yeah, it was. So I did reference it a lot because I couldn't remember who died and who lived. And I'm like
Yeah.
getting to that point where I'm like, all right, well here's the time, here's the scene. And then I wrote it, and then I looked back my outline. I'm like, oh, well, I might killed a few more people off, or this guy lived and he should have been dead. But it was fun, and I tried something new, in a complete different aspect that never been done. So I had never seen a land battle and a ship battle. So you got your aerial battle, your land and water battle, and I've never seen that. I've never read that in a dragon or fantasy book or any
Hmm.
movie. I've never really seen it like all come together like that. So I was like, this would be the perfect ending. That would be so cool to see something because no one's done that out there. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did, but I ended up killing a few more people off than I expected. So they're casualties of the idea.
So you're doing real yeoman's work. You're out slinging books in person. You're going to cons. What are some conventions you're planning on going to? How do you like going to the conventions? What makes you pick to being a father of three and a husband with work? What convinces you to go out to sling books at those sort of places?
The drive to make someone's life better and to make a change in the world is the biggest drive. And I've seen so many lives change just from a book they've gotten or they've read it and they loved it. I mean, I've had people asking for 6 months now for book two. Like they're champing at the bit, just trying to when it comes out. So, if I know I've made a difference and can change someone's lives, and then that enables me to give back to communities, then that's a win. And most authors, and they're great people, but the problem that I see is frequently is that they'll go to a book signing or like a author con or something like that, and they'll be so disappointed because they had expenses like the table might have cost or the
Yeah,
drive might cost or the hotel or gas, and they're like, man, I lost $100 or 200 or $50 out of this thing. I'm like, okay, well, you lost money. That sucks in this economy. It sucks. But, like, what did you gain? So for
yeah,
me, if I lost money, but I gained 20 people on a newsletter and I still sold even one book, and sometimes it's 10 books or, 20 or whatever. Or, hey, I changed a life that day because some little kid got a book, or even an adult, and we had a conversation about the Air Force or water or just some random, guy. And I'm like, this is a great engagement. Like, this is awesome. To
yeah,
me, that's a win.
yeah.
And,
I'd say
y-
it's
you
like
know,
it's
it's,
like gambling. Do it until you're not having fun.
yeah, Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you gotta have fun for me,
Yeah.
and I love traveling. I've always loved traveling. I've been to Cayman Islands in Mexico to the Aztec ruins on a cruise with my dad and my stepmom, and my stepsister when I was little.
Yep.
Well, high school. I was younger, but I love traveling, and I've gone a lot of places, but the traveling is nice because you get to see things, and when I was younger, probably like 5 to 10 years ago now, I was probably the most typical workman guy you would find out there. Like, I love my books, but I didn't know if I'd publish them. I didn't know how people react, and I was just a typical, 8 to 5, whatever. Sometimes work 12, 14 hours a day, work weekends, work home, odd and ends. You got your chickens, animals, you got your family, friends, and the yard. And I was like, this is the life. And then I started traveling, and then I'm like, there is so much more to see than my little grassy hill or my road right in front of me or my chickens in my backyard. Like the world is so big, and it just really opened my eyes. And so now I've never been like materialistic, but now I'm like, man, I want to go to these places. I want to check out, and now I've got people in like every country I'm talking to, and I'm like, I want to see that. Like tell me about your country, like tell me about your day. And you might not have a Starbucks or McDonald's, but you've got a, oh, what was it? Oh, it was something in southern like Tennessee or down there when I took my wife to see her family, and I kept giving her a hard time because I didn't know it existed. And sure enough, we pulled up, and I'm like, who would name this like general store this name? Like, I mean, it just makes you smile and laugh every time you hear the name. But it was a cool experience, and so the other part of that is that you meet so many teachers or directors, or you meet someone that's like, hey, let's do a podcast, or hey, you know like one or two people in Pensacola, they're going to put my name in a book that they're doing, and they're going to write about like what things they're doing you can do at Pensacola, Florida, because when you go to these places, sometimes there's not a lot of information or maps or tourist guide, and so you've got your whole family with you, and you're like, well, what can I do for kids?
Yeah.
So I asked her, and I guess I inspired her, and so she's going to put my name in the dedication and stuff for her book. So, it's a deeper meaning. I mean, I know people's got to live. You got to have money. You got to pay bills. I get that, but the bonds and the connections that you make is so much deeper than any money or any material that people that personally, like I personally, can have. But to change a life and to make a difference in the world, that is the power of what a book, a fantasy book can do, or just giving back and your kindness. So for me, that's it. My wife and boys just get the nice perk of seeing the world too. You know what I mean? Because they're like, "Oh, this is cool." I mean, but then they want to terrorize people of the book signing. So I'm like, "Well, you guys do your own thing. I'll be here all day burning up or sweating, whatever."
Yeah, go get a hot dog. Go get a hot dog.
Right? Yep. So, I mean, for them, it's just the bonus of seeing everything, but for me, it's more that personal relationship and connections. So,
Yeah, I think, I talked to Brandon Bauer, who goes under the name Saturday Dad on Twitter. And he's a principal in Pittsburgh, and he said to me something that I think has definitely had a lasting effect, which is that he is very into authors that are engaged, that are just engaged, and that are human beings, and that are just, you know, just out there and and living and friendly with their fans and want to make their fans' day. And I think that's really the key. To be perfectly honest, I think that's, more than, yakking it up about politics or doing anything like that.
yeah.
That element is a thing that seems like the most fun part of writing to me. I always just like to hand off my stuff to people and be like, you know, I let me know what you think. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they take so long, and you're just like, weren't you gonna read my thing? Let me know what you think. You know, just excited. I'm excited for them to take the twists and turns. You know, so
It is, it's the engagement, and I can tell
yeah,
you, man, I've been a lot of places. We've traveled, I'd say 5 to 6,000 miles just this year. Um, and the biggest thing is the engagement. So, like the books are cool, but a lot of times I'll be like, how's your day going? Like, how's the week?
yeah,
Like, or if I notice they're having a hard time or, their kids are being crazy, there's a lot of times where I'll give my author cards and I'll be like, here, to the little kids coming, or I see the mom struggling, or the dad struggling, and they're like kind of getting overwhelmed and they're getting embarrassed because they're at, an event and the kids are like, ah, and I'm like, here you go. Just take my
yep.
card. And the kid instantly is like, ooh, something pretty. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, man.
And so they're,
Stickers. Stickers.
yeah,
You
like
gotta
it,
bring stickers to an author event.
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
by the way, all authors out there, bring stickers to
Stickers.
your table and give them to the kids. This is the answer. That every
Yeah,
parent will love you because you're giving away
they will.
stickers.
Yeah, and then
Kids
you'll draw
love
the
them.
parents there too, and the parents are like, "Oh, you're such a nice guy. Well, what's this about?" You know what I mean? And then
Oh
they start
yeah.
engaging you.
Oh yeah. I've watched that happen a zillion times. I took my daughter to uh, the Dulles Expo Center here in Virginia to the Comic Con, and she was just like, "Oh man, I could. Every one of these tables is going to give me stickers. I'm going to every one of these tables getting stickers as a 4 year old." But
So she
anyway,
probably went to
yeah, she went
every
nuts.
table, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
every table. Then Daddy has to talk to all those people
yeah,
about
I know.
their hello about their custom painting of Hello Kitty that's unlicensed. It's unlicensed. They make that clear. But
Yep.
you know, uh, yes, this is the nature of bringing a 4 year old to a comic book
I know.
convention. I brought her because they're the quote unquote real Ghostbusters, the Virginia sort of Ghostbusters cosplayers were there. And my daughter's obsessed with the Ghostbusters. So I was like, oh, we'll go and she can see the
Yeah,
Ghostbusters, which was
it's
quite
a
a
parent
thrill.
trap.
Yeah, it's a Parent Trap.
It's a
Well,
parent trap.
well, Ryan, we got 5 minutes. Give
Okay.
me your plug. Tell us all about what you're doing, your book, where the people can get it, all that good stuff.
So currently, I've got a major tour in London. I'll be in October. I will have a tour for 2 weeks in India next year. Book three will arrive next year. We're republishing of book one, and then book two will launch at the same time. End of July is really the goal, and I think right now we're on track for it. Currently, I've got New York, Ohio, Indiana a little bit. I've got Georgia, Tennessee. Between here and Georgia and Florida, I've got about 20 or more bookstores that agree to carry it. I will be at Florida next year again, maybe Iowa. I know I'll be traveling quite a bit. Right now, the best place is to contact me on my social media. So, Facebook, Instagram, just search Ryan John Null. You can't miss it. It's blasted everywhere on there. But I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a Pinterest page. I do YouTube channels as well. My kids are in those YouTube channels, so I've got that channel going. And then I'm on TikTok and Twitter. I'm more on Twitter and TikTok. I'm on there as well. It's the Flare Chronicles on Twitter. I think it's the Flare Chronicles on TikTok. I'm still learning video, so video is a thing learn for me. But it will be available everywhere online. The new special edition is coming. And then my new website will be it'll be www.authorryannull.com, and it should be ready by the middle of July. It will have an interactive user experience with the map on the background. There's characters. It'll have a little flame on the icon. It's really cool. We've been working really hard on it. But the cool thing about that website is you'll see my mission statements, my policies, and it'll have an interactive username and password where you create a free account and then you can check your shipping and invoices and purchase history. I do have merchandise. I've got coffee mugs, I've got tumblers, my map, my bookmarks. I am launching the drawstring bags. I will be launching calendars, postcards, illustrations, about 8 more different merchandise items at book launch. So that's exciting. And yeah, things are going along. I'll be starting to travel a lot more in August, really till the end of the year. But um, I've been a guest speaker once, and that was really good. I'll be a guest speaker next year as well, I hope. And then I've got Columbus, Ohio, several Ohio things coming up this month and next month. And then I've got Indianapolis as well. So I am hoping to get accepted by Australian publisher for a short story. And then I've also going to submit a short story to one in Indianapolis in northern Indiana. So another just part of the Flare Chronicles realm, so to speak, universe, but it'll be a couple different publishers. So I'm trying.
You let me know which part of that marketing plan works out the best and come on back and share it with us.
I
I don't think
will.
I have I don't think anyone other than you has the energy to make that happen. But look, I wish you all the best, man. Getting out there
Thank you.
and having fun. That's terrific. That's just great to hear. And the Ryan Null, everybody. By the way, Null is spelled Null. So just in case it didn't come through clearly, that's www.author RyanNull.com. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
It when you go to it, it'll say coming soon, and it you kind of can get the aesthetics. It's going to be really cool. It's got a great surprise for everyone, but it will be the one-stop shop for everything. It should be done by middle of July, is what I'm hoping. If not, by the end of July. So somewhere in that time frame, it'll be done.
Well, terrific, Ryan. It's been great talking to you, and I just wish you all the best. And I can't wait to keep up with all the stuff you're doing. And you let us know when the next book comes out.
I will, and I appreciate being on here. I do have a free newsletter if anyone's interested to see pictures of London and my travels as well. Just email me or go to social media, get a hold of me. I try to get people on there because it's lots of cool stuff and a lot of good information that we could probably spend 3 hours on, but it's a little bit more condensed.
Great. Well, this has been another episode of the Dadlet Pod. Wishing you guys all the best.